In this test, I undid some of my any file changes, which is supposed to increase or decrease or increase the distance at which high-res textures are unloaded in lieu of low-res textures. So I believe it affects the LOD system as far as how things are loaded, what sequence they're loaded, what conditional checks is made by the game engine to make sure everything is there, and whether things are in transition. All those things I have absolutely no idea about. But here's what I did. Let's take a look at. We're going to take a look at the any files going into the game. Okay, so the first one here is the Fallout 4 any. And anything in purple is something that's modified from a default. So, and the defaults exist in a database. It's a shareable database between users. But anyways, without getting into that too much, you can see where the entries, if they are in the database, will flag anything that is different. And if you look here at this distance right here, this degrade distance, upgrade and degrade, I believe this is the ultra setting. I could be wrong, but see where it says default is 800, default is like 1600. I believe that is low res. So this changes the distance at which textures degrade and the distance at which they upgrade. I'm not sure why you have a zero, like a variable that has a 0 and a 1, because I'm not sure if that is LOD and then MIP maps, miniature textures. I'm not sure. But I had it before. You can see what's commented out. That's why these are gray, because these don't exist in the database because they're commented out. You can see that I had them set at 75 and 5,000, which is much higher than the degrade distance here for Ultra. You can see they're over doubled in some cases. And the same for the upgrade distance. The upgrade distance, to me, looks farther away, which means the farther you are away, the sooner it's going to update. So here you have to be closer to the item before it updates to a higher res. Here you can be farther away. So that's kind of like what this is. So let me highlight those so you can see what I'm referring to. So here's I believe this is the ultra resolution default by the game launcher, and this is what I had it set to. So you can see that the farther you are away, the sooner it upgrades to a higher res. Okay, and then the texture fallback, I took all this out. I have it all set back to its default. So I allow texture fallback, degradable textures. All this should be the default now. Diffuse only is default now. I did have that set to 0. And if you go down here and take a look at this particular one right here, which is the custom, Fallout 4 custom, you can see I commented those out. So everything should be back to normal. So we're going to fire it off, and I've already done this, but I'll just let you see what it does. This does not affect that particular cell. That cell still behaves the same way. So, and I didn't necessarily mean persistent, I mean more resident in memory. It was previously loaded. So, I don't believe it's, now that I look at it more, I don't believe it has to do with the previs pre-combined quote visualization, how it renders the visuals, because once it's loaded in memory, it's just fine. If it was previs or pre-combined, it wouldn't matter. If it was the visualization of the data, it wouldn't matter. You could call it virtualization, but the visualization of the data doesn't matter, because it would disappear. It would simply appear to be there and appear not, depending on the viewing angle, and that is not the case. So let's load this game save back up. That is not the case. It looks like something is triggering it to unload so that it is no longer there. Let me turn this down some. Okay. So it looks like it's triggering to unload, and that's just a guess, because that's what it looks like it's doing. It looks like it's unloading the cell even though you're looking at it. And the game knows it's unloaded, so it doesn't render it. That means that it has to be in the link list or in the depth buffer of the meshes. When the meshes are loaded, it's got to be in the depth buffer, or somehow it renders in the depth buffer, something along those lines, because for some reason it wants to unload. So we're gonna do this so you can see where he changed it. Frame rate's a little bit better in here, but it always gets that way when I first come in here. But the frame rate is a little bit better. I know you won't be able to see it in the video, but I can see it because it's not having to load high-res data. So the load on the graphic card might be a little bit better, a little bit easier. It might crash if we go over this bridge, so that way you can actually see the crash. But I believe this symptom is what's happening all over the place. So here we're going to go over the bridge. Let's face this direction, and you can see the little car over there, the APC, and then the APC is now gone. So that actually had no bearing whatsoever, and it will stay gone until it is actually loaded into memory. So it's almost like it's set up as some kind of, it's like the LOD on it, I don't know, it's like the LOD can't be wrong because you wouldn't see it to begin with. It's like if you set a very, very low LOD, it looks like it thinks it's low-res LED. It's almost like the LED thinks that it's incredibly low, and therefore it doesn't even, it unloaded it. It thinks it's like, and I don't know why that particular object or group of objects, because if you notice, the barrel's not there. The barrel's not there. All of that's gone.
Your thoughts?
Wow.
So I do know
to
that if you set the view distance, if you have the view distance set really low, it will not render objects at a distance. It'll only render objects that are closer. So I wonder if that might be the problem, because I know the quarry where the Raider has the same issue, where the quarry blocks are all rendered low res. It's actually LOD, and when you save and reload in that location, it fixes the LOD. So there's something that happens during cell transition. It's during the cell transition where I'm assuming there's got to be some load or unload process going on, because I'm assuming that it unloads stuff it doesn't need as it goes, and that keeps a reasonable VRAM footprint, a manageable VRAM footprint during the course of gameplay. So I believe that happens on individual cell. So I'm not sure what conditions exist, so I'm almost inclined to believe that it thinks it's super low res LOD, see? Because if I get closer to it, if it was completely missing at this point, it would never show up. But once I get close enough to it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, you don't have, like, your draw distance is not incredibly short, so you're now coming into a reasonable draw distance, and there it is. So it's almost like that until that is loaded. So if that's the case, then maybe that has to do with something about the LOD being incorrectly generated. It might be with LOD. So that way it's incorrectly generated, because now, see, it'll stay there. Because now it's loaded. It's no longer LOD. It loaded the actual textures that you need. And I wonder if, I actually kind of wonder if we go in to us, if we scope this and go in. Yeah, see, that looks fairly high res. That does not look low res to me. So I wonder if maybe, well, see, at first I would think, okay, something's missing in the low res portion of it, but then it wouldn't show up at all until you got close to it. And it's got something to do with cell transitions. And why it happens on this bridge, I'm not sure. But just wanted to document that for anybody who might be able to use it. You can see what conditions it happens. And like I say, I crash on this bridge right about here, right about during that transition period. So I'm pretty sure it has something to do with that. I think I'm assuming it's going to be a race condition that is not known to be a race condition. You could have multiple threads running and it doesn't pop up, except under heavy thread load. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure at this point. But I got some things I have to do this afternoon, and I'm gonna kind of chill out a little bit, and then see what more I can come up with. Kind of let this stuff percolate. Let it bake in the proverbial microwave oven for a while, and just kind of see what kind of theories we can come up with. All right. Hope that helps, or at least maybe sheds a little bit of light on something and show you the problem I'm having. And I'm sure that if you look when you're running see, if you look back over here, you can actually see the trees are much lower res now. That stuff is much lower res. It looks more like bushes. So, but the frame rate is better. So I may leave it at that for now, and or I may upgrade. Let me upgrade the textures and see what that does, and see if that actually still has a pretty good frame rate, but still has pop in. I can kind of deal with pop in, but just wanted to document that and let you see it, and yeah, we'll eventually figure it out, or somebody will figure it out. So hang in there, and just have fun with your game.